The pen felt heavier than it should have as I sat across from the lawyer's gleaming oak desk. The divorce papers spread out before me like the wreckage of a life I barely recognized anymore. His voice was a low, practiced drone, explaining terms, procedures, consequences. But I barely heard him. My mind was somewhere else, caught between the man I used to be and the ruins he had become. "Mr. Carter?" The lawyer prompted gently. "Are you ready to sign?" Am I ready? I almost laughed out loud. Was I ready when I found the messages? When the truth spilled out like blood from a wound I didn't even know I had? Was I ready when I realized the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, had been playing a different game all along? The room smelled faintly of leather and stale coffee. The midday light from the towering windows cut harsh stripes across the polished floor, slicing the scene into stark, merciless pieces. Somewhere, deep inside, a voice whispered that this was justice, that I should feel victorious. After all, I wasn't the one who ended it. I wasn't the one who lied. I wasn't the one who betrayed vows in the dark, while I believed in a future that was already slipping through my fingers. But there was no satisfaction in it, no triumph, only the hollow ache of understanding just how deep betrayal could carve into a man. I looked down at the pages again. Her name, my name, the life we built, reduced to black ink and sterile signatures. All it took was a single moment, a single overheard conversation, to shatter everything. A cabin, a bottle of bourbon, laughter that wasn't meant for my ears, a truth I couldn't unhear. My hand tightened around the pen. I thought about all the lies, all the nights spent wondering if I was imagining it, if the coldness in her eyes was real or just my own paranoia. I thought about the man I trusted, my own boss, the casual way he had stolen not just my wife's loyalty, but my own future. I thought about the plan I set into motion the moment I realized what I was really dealing with, a plan they never saw coming. "Mr. Carter?" The lawyer said again, more firmly this time. I exhaled slowly, a breath I felt I'd been holding for months. With a steady hand, I signed my name. When I looked up, I wasn't the same man who had walked into this office. He was dead, and whatever was left, he was just getting started. Mornings in our apartment always followed a rhythm. She'd be in the kitchen, humming some pop song under her breath, brewing coffee strong enough to wake the dead. I'd sit at the table, reading headlines I'd forget 5 minutes later, pretending not to watch her move around in her robe, her hair a mess, her skin still warm from sleep. It was a kind of domestic bliss that people post about but rarely live. At least, that's what I thought. "Toast or omelet?" she called out, peeking from behind the refrigerator door. Her smile still did things to me after all these years. "Omelet," I said, "but only if it's the kind you make when you're in a good mood." She winked. "So extra cheese and too much salt?" I chuckled and turned back to paper. It was the little things that made her feel like home. The way she talked in her sleep. The way she left the cap off the toothpaste. The way she'd say, "My boss is an idiot," with a laugh, then spend 20 minutes explaining his latest mistake. Funny how we never see the cracks until they're wide enough to fall through. At the time, everything seemed solid. I had just hit my 5-year mark at the firm, and the promotion I'd been chasing was finally in reach. She'd switched apartments a few months earlier. Same company, different floor, closer to her new supervisor. A man I'd barely spoken to, except in passing during company events. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? We'd been married just over a year. Still new enough to hold hands in public. Still old enough to leave our phones on the table, without passwords. We'd fought, sure, over stupid things like dishes or how often we visited her mother. But nothing serious, nothing fatal. If you'd asked me then to rate our marriage on a scale from 1 to 10, I would have said 8.5, maybe 9 on a good day. The funny thing about betrayal is it doesn't arrive like a lightning strike. It trickles in like a draft under the door, so subtle you don't notice it until your whole house is cold. But that morning, with coffee in my cup and my wife dancing barefoot on the tile floor, I felt lucky. She came over and kissed me on the forehead, holding her mug between her hands. "You're quiet today," she said. "Just tired," I replied, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Long week." Mine, too, she said with a soft sigh. I swear, if Evan schedules one more meeting after 6, I'm going to murder someone. Tell HR first. I joked, at least let me get you a good lawyer. She laughed, and for a moment, it was perfect again. That illusion, that soft lie. Later that day, we had lunch together in the company cafeteria. I remember she wore that green blouse, the one that made her eyes look impossibly bright. Evan walked past our table and nodded at me. I nodded back. If only I knew then. If only I understood what that smile between them meant. If only I hadn't been so goddamn trusting. But in that moment, I had no reason to doubt her. No reason to question the story I believed we were writing together. We were still us. Still real. At least, I thought so. The first real crack didn't come with a fight. It came with a text message. Or rather, with what wasn't in it. It was a Thursday night. I was sitting in the office, finishing up a proposal that had eaten my entire week. She had gone to a team-building event. One of those after-hours things that Evan loved organizing. The kind where drinks flowed faster than the conversations. Around 10, I texted her. Everything good? Need a ride? No reply. At first, I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she was caught up in conversation. Maybe anything. But the minutes dragged into hours, and that seed of unease started rooting itself deep inside my gut. At midnight, I called. Straight to voicemail. At 1, I tried again. Same thing. I sat in my parked car outside the apartment, staring at the glowing screen, refreshing the call log like it would somehow make a difference. The city felt different at that hour, too big, too empty, and for the first time in a long while, so did my life. When she finally stumbled in at almost 2, smelling of gin and cigarette smoke she didn't smoke, she laughed it off. Sorry, babe, she said, throwing her clutch onto the counter. Lost track of time. You know how it is. Do I? I watched her peel off her heels, wincing when one ankle gave a little twist. She was beautiful in a messy, careless way, hair tangled, makeup smudged, but for the first time, it didn't hit me like it used to. It hit differently, like a warning. You could have texted, I said carefully. She waved a hand. Phone died. Long story. God, I'm exhausted. She kissed me then, quickly, carelessly, like checking a box on a to-do list. And maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was nothing. But something about the way her eyes slid away from mine when she said it, that was the moment, the first real moment when the ground shifted under me. I didn't say anything more that night. Didn't accuse. Didn't pry. I just watched her disappear into the bedroom, humming that same careless pop song under her breath. And as I sat alone at the kitchen table, I realized something cold and ugly. Trust doesn't shatter in one dramatic explosion. It dies in small, quiet moments like this. A text that doesn't come. A kiss that doesn't land. A laugh that feels like a mask. I stayed at the table long after the apartment went silent, long after the clock ticked past 3. Then 4. I stared at the door she closed behind her, feeling like there was now a wall between us made of things unsaid. Maybe I should have confronted her then. Maybe I should have demanded the truth, torn it out with bloody hands if I had to. But I didn't. I did what all fools in love do. I told myself it was nothing. I chose denial over confirmation. Because back then, I still thought saving us was possible. I still thought we were worth saving. God help me, I still loved her. In the weeks that followed, the feeling didn't go away. It sharpened. Little things. Always the little things. The way she started locking her phone. The way her smiles became just a beat too quick, too polished. The way Evan's name crept into conversations more often. Harmless, casual anecdotes that didn't feel harmless anymore. I wasn't stupid. I saw it. But love makes you complicit in your own destruction. You want so badly to believe that everything is fine, that this crack in the wall is just a shadow, not the beginning of the collapse. I convinced myself it was work stress. New projects, new pressures, long hours. We were both tired. We were both stretched thin. That's what I told myself when she started coming home later and later. Makeup a little too perfect for just another late meeting. That's what I told myself when I found a second wine glass in the sink, one she couldn't explain. The lies started small. I'm just helping Evan prep for a big pitch. Late night, team drinks again. Don't wait up, babe. I'll be home late. I waited anyway. I sat in the dark living room. Hours slipping by like smoke, the cold coffee cup clutched in my hands long since forgotten. I listened to the city breathe beyond our windows and wondered how two people could live in the same space and feel 1,000 miles apart. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my family. It felt too shameful somehow. Like admitting I saw the signs made me weaker. Like acknowledging the truth would collapse what little remained. Then one night I cracked. She came home at 2:30, reeking of gin and cheap perfume that wasn't hers. Her hair was tousled like it had been touched too many times. Her lipstick a faint ghost on the corner of her mouth. Rough night? I asked, voice low and even. She froze in the doorway, the keys still dangling from her fingers. You're awake, she said. Couldn't sleep. She hesitated, just for a heartbeat. But that heartbeat was enough. Enough to see the guilt flash across her face before she buried it under a brittle smile. You're being weird, she said, tossing her purse onto the table. What's wrong with you lately? Me? The words burned in my throat, but I swallowed them. Instead, I just stared at her, really looked, and in that moment, I realized something brutal and final. I didn't know her anymore. Not really. Whatever we had built, whatever foundation we once stood on, it was gone, eroded from underneath while I wasn't looking. Or maybe while I was refusing to look. She disappeared into the bedroom, shutting the door between us with a soft click that sounded more like a gunshot. I sat on the couch for hours afterward, staring at nothing, feeling the slow rot of understanding settle deep in my bones. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't just fear. It was certainty. The woman I loved was slipping away from me, piece by piece. And someone else, someone I used to call my boss, my mentor, was there to catch the part she left behind. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made a decision. No more guessing. No more hoping. No more waiting for the axe to fall. I needed the truth. The whole, ugly truth. Even if it shattered me. Even if it burned everything I thought I knew to ash. I would rather bleed from the truth than suffocate under 1,000 sweet lies. And once I knew, really knew, there would be no forgiveness. No mercy. Only consequences. The next morning, the world outside looked the same. Coffee shops opening. Cabs honking, suits rushing down sidewalks like blood cells in a concrete vein. But inside me, something had shifted, something fundamental. I made breakfast like usual. I even packed her a lunch, just the way she liked it. Turkey, no mayo, extra mustard. She floated to the kitchen in her new silk blouse, texting furiously, barely noticing me. The performance continued. Her smile, my silence, the delicate masquerade of a marriage in its death throes. But under the surface, I wasn't the husband she thought I still was. Not anymore. I was studying her now. Every glance at her phone, every unexplained absence, every shift in her tone when Evan's name came up. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was gathering evidence, preparing for war. At lunch, I made a few calls. Discreet ones. First to my old college buddy, Carter. He ran a private security firm now, the kind that didn't advertise and only took clients by referral. I kept it simple. I need surveillance equipment. No questions asked. There was a beat of silence on his end, then a slow, knowing chuckle. I'll have a kit ready for you by tonight. Second call was to a lawyer, not for divorce. Not yet, for financial advice. I needed to know where the bodies were buried, figuratively speaking. Joint accounts, hidden assets, anything she could weaponize if things turned ugly, because they would. I didn't have the luxury of denial anymore, only preparation. That evening, while she was working late, I tore through our apartment like a bloodhound. No rage, no destruction, just methodical, ice-cold focus. I checked her laptop first. Password protected now. New habit. Fine. I had better tools than that. I pulled out the small flash drive Carter had given me, military grade, undetectable spyware. Slip it into the port, wait 60 seconds. Done. Next, her nightstand. Beneath a tangle of cheap jewelry and old receipts, I found a second phone, not the one she used around me. This one was newer, cleaner, locked, of course. But that didn't matter. The spyware would mirror everything. Texts, calls, location. I placed it exactly how I found it. No trace of disturbance. By the time she stumbled to the door at midnight, laughing too loudly at some joke she'd heard in someone else's company, I was already 2 steps ahead. I played the role, groggy, half asleep, mumbling something about meetings tomorrow. She kissed me goodnight with lips that tasted faintly of whiskey and someone else's cologne. And when she rolled over and drifted off, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, not feeling, not hurting, planning. Over the next week, the spyware fed me a steady stream of betrayal. Messages between her and Evan that stripped away any doubt. Photos, plans, secrets whispered through glowing screens at 2 a.m. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I documented. Screenshots, recordings, GPS data, logging every late-night visit to Evan's building. I built a case as meticulously as a man preparing for trial. Because, in a way, that's what it was. And the more evidence I gathered, the colder I became. Not because the love was dying, but because it was already dead, murdered. The woman who shared my bed, my home, my dreams, she was a ghost now. And the man she betrayed me with, he wasn't just her lover. He was my superior, my boss, which made this not just personal. It made it professional. At work, I played dumb, smiling in meetings, nodding at Evan's hollow jokes, pretending I didn't know that while I was drafting quarterly reports, he was drafting plans for my wife. But inside, I was already dismantling their world piece by piece. Quietly, patiently. First, I started gathering financial documents from the company, expense reports, travel logs, emails. Carter helped again, planting subtle keyloggers on Evan's computer during a routine IT update. Within days, I had enough dirt to bring the firm's compliance team running like wolves to fresh blood. Double billing clients, unauthorized bonuses, questionable expense reimbursements. Evan wasn't just screwing my wife. He was screwing the company too. And soon, he'd pay for both. But not yet. No, not yet. I needed the perfect moment. The moment that would ensure neither of them could recover. Not professionally. Not socially. Not financially. They'd built a house of lies together. I was going to burn it down. And when the smoke cleared, I wouldn't be the broken man they thought they left behind. I would be the last thing they ever expected. The architect of their ruin. Timing, my father used to say, is everything. Strike too soon and you tip your hand. Strike too late and the enemy escapes. I wasn't going to make either mistake. Every night, while she texted Evan from our bed, I planned the perfect collapse. Every day, while Evan barked orders across the office, I tightened the noose around his neck. I started small. An anonymous tip to HR about questionable behavior in management. Just enough to trigger an internal audit. Just enough to make Evan sweat. Nothing that could be traced back to me. At the same time, I encourage her. Subtly, carefully. A comment here, a compliment there. Making her feel safe, comfortable, lulling her into believing I was still the idiot she thought she was deceiving. You work too hard, I said one night, massaging her shoulders after dinner. You should take a break. Go have fun. She smiled, relieved, grateful, and texted Evan before I'd even left the room. Perfect. I needed her distracted. I needed them reckless. While they were busy planning secret weekends and inventing new lies, I was busy building my masterpiece. The final act needed a stage. And what better stage than the company's upcoming annual awards gala? It was all so poetic, it almost felt faded. Every senior executive, every major client, every investor with deep pockets and sharp instincts, all gathered under one chandelier-lit roof. A perfect audience for the show I was about to orchestrate. The 2 weeks leading up to the gala were a frenzy of invisible activity. I found an internal memo Evan had falsified, claiming credit for a multi-million-dollar deal that had, in fact, been mine. I made sure it landed, anonymously, in the legal department's inbox. I leaked a series of screenshots, again anonymously, of Evan's late-night meetings scheduled with my wife, thinly disguised as business travel expenses, hotel names, room numbers, matching timestamps. Enough for HR to start sniffing around. I even planted a rumor in the office gossip mill, subtle, just a seed, that maybe Evan's close relationship with certain subordinates wasn't purely professional. It spread like wildfire. And through it all, I watched them drift deeper into complacency, oblivious, arrogant, drunk on each other and their own sense of invincibility. Good. The higher they climbed, the harder they'd fall. The night of the gala, I dressed carefully. Dark tailored suit, crisp white shirt, no tie, confident, sharp, unapologetic. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror before leaving. The man staring back wasn't broken anymore. He was forged. She floated down the stairs in a red dress that clung to her like a second skin. I almost laughed at the absurdity. She looked stunning, dangerous, and completely blind to the fact she was walking into her own execution. "You look incredible," I said. "Offer my arm." She beamed, slipping her hand into mine. So trusting, so tragically unaware. At the gala, champagne flowed and speeches dragged. I worked the room like a man reborn, shaking hands, making polite conversation, all while watching them out of the corner of my eye. The glances, the smirks, the brushes of fingertips disguised as accidents. They thought they were winning. When the award started, I made my move. I excused myself, slipping behind the scenes where Carter and his tech crew waited. They'd been hired discreetly to handle the gala's live event production. In reality, they were here for one purpose only. I nodded. Carter grinned. Showtime. The first award of the night was Outstanding Leadership in Sales. Evan's name was called. He rose, smug and gleaming, kissing my wife's cheek before striding toward the stage. Applause filled the room. He took the microphone, beginning some boilerplate speech about teamwork and innovation. And that's when the screens lit up, not with the prepared highlight reel he'd sent to the event organizers, but with the footage Carter had spliced together. Footage pulled from hotel security cameras, office hallways, parking garages, her hand on his arm, his hand on her waist, midnight kisses in shadow corners, receipts matching dates and locations. It wasn't pornographic. It didn't need to be. It was undeniable. The room fell silent. The applause died in a strangled gasp. Evan froze mid-sentence, staring at the screens. Panic blossomed across his face. She dropped her champagne flute, glass and golden liquid exploding at her feet. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. The clients shifted uncomfortably. The board members whispered furiously. Phone snapped photos. Videos. There would be no containing this. I watched in the back of the room, hands in my pockets, face unreadable. Evan stumbled over his words, trying to salvage something, anything, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. The court of public opinion had already rendered its verdict. Guilty. By the time security approached, murmuring into their earpieces, he knew it was over. Her, too. I saw it in her face. The realization that everything she thought was safe, secret, untouchable, was burning down around her in real time. And I had lit the match. I stepped forward then, as the organizer scrambled to cut the feed, as the whispers turned into open outrage. I walked right up to Evan, right up to her, and I said, loudly enough for the whole room to hear, "Congratulations. You finally made an impression." Then I turned and walked out, leaving them to drown the ruins. Not angry, not triumphant, just finished. The real reckoning was still coming. This was just the opening act. The morning after the gala, the city woke up to blood in the water. Every business news outlet ran the story. Every industry gossip site had a different version, each headline more brutal than the last. Scandal erupts at Reynolds' annual gala. VP and employee exposed. Executive caught in alleged affair with subordinate amidst fraud investigation. Sources confirm terminations imminent following public spectacle. Sources, of course, being me. A few anonymous tips. A few well-placed leaks. They ate it up like vultures finding fresh meat. By noon, both Evan and she were trending on LinkedIn for all the wrong reasons. The company's board had no choice. They convened an emergency meeting. Discussions that had once been hypothetical suddenly became urgent, unavoidable. Sarah, my most trusted ally in the firm, the one who had quietly slipped me documents, copied emails, tracked discrepancies, texted me a single line. It's done. They're finished. Still, I wasn't taking chances. I filed a formal complaint, complete with evidence packets thicker than a law textbook, email trails, hotel receipts, witness statements, and a particularly damning timeline showing how Evan had siphoned company resources for personal gain under guise of business development meetings with her. Fraud, abuse of power, violation of company policy, an airtight case. The company's legal department moved faster than I'd ever seen them move. Their jobs depended on it now. By sunset, Evan's badge access was revoked, his office locked down. Security guards escorted him out like the common criminal he truly was. His face drawn tight, his designer suit wrinkled from a day spent trying and failing to save himself. She wasn't spared either. HR called her in under guise of a compliance review. She probably thought she could talk her way out of it, bat her eyelashes, tell some half-truths, shed a few tears. But there was no room for theatrics. When she emerged an hour later, she was pale and shaking, clutching a cardboard box that once held promises but now carried only regrets. The contents of her desk, her entire career, reduced to a few personal items and a tarnished reputation. She didn't even look at me as she walked out the door. Maybe she knew, maybe she sensed, in that final shattering moment, that the man she had betrayed was the architect of her downfall. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't doing this for vengeance. Not really. I was doing this for the man I used to be, the one who loved honestly, the one who trusted too easily. He deserved justice. He deserved closure, and I intended to deliver it. The following days were a study in collapse. Evan tried to deny everything at first, held a hastily arranged press conference on the courthouse steps, flanked by some second-rate lawyer with a bad tie. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding, office politics, an overreaction. It might have worked if the footage hadn't already gone viral, if the investors hadn't already begun pulling out, if the internal audit I initiated hadn't uncovered a pattern of misuse and deceit that stretched back years. He was finished. She fared no better. Friends stopped answering her calls. Former co-workers distanced themselves like she was radioactive. Her LinkedIn profile turned into a battleground of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled insults. No company wanted to touch her now, not after seeing how willing she was to burn down everything for a few stolen moments behind closed doors. She moved out of our apartment 3 days later, sent me a single text. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Some things don't deserve closure. Some endings are better left unfinished. A sentence cut short mid-word. She packed a single suitcase and left the keys on the counter. The same counter where we once made pancakes on Sunday mornings, where we laughed about nothing and dreamed about everything. I stood in the doorway, watching her go, not with anger, not with sadness, with indifference, the kind of cold, clean emptiness you feel after finally pulling a rotting tooth. Freedom tastes like blood sometimes, but it's still freedom. I sold the apartment a month later, moved across the city, different skyline, different bars, different life. At night, I'd sometimes sit on my new balcony, drink in hand, and watch the stars emerge one by one. No regrets, only lessons. They thought they'd buried me, but they didn't know. You can't bury a man who's already been to hell and back. You can only set him free. And me? Freedom wasn't a moment. It wasn't a signed piece of paper or a door swinging shut behind her. It was a slow, Deliberate reclamation. A choice made 100 times a day. I won't carry their betrayal anymore. It started small. A new apartment, high enough that the city noise became a distant hum instead of a constant roar. New furniture. No memories woven into the fabric. No ghost hiding between the cushions. No lipstick stains on coffee mugs. I didn't bother unpacking the past. Some boxes are better left unopened. Instead, I built something new. I hit the gym like a man possessed. Every drop of sweat another ounce of poison leaving my body. Weights clanged against metal like war drums. My muscles ached. My lungs burned. Good. Pain meant progress. Pain meant I was alive. Professionally, it was time to make some moves, too. With Evan and her gone, the company needed new leadership. The board scrambled to stabilize the chaos. And there I was, waiting. The promotion that had once been dangled like a carrot now arrived as a white-gloved offering. An apology wrapped in a title. Vice President of Operations. Effective immediately. Funny how fast they move when survival's on the line. I accepted, of course, but not out of gratitude. No, I wanted it because it was mine. Because I'd earned it through late nights and early mornings, not backroom deals and whispered promises. Because rebuilding something from ashes tastes sweeter than any easy victory. I cleaned house. Dead weight was cut. Sycophants were demoted. Fresh blood, real talent, was promoted from within. I didn't want loyalty born from fear. I wanted excellence forged in respect. Slowly, methodically, the rot was carved out, and what remained, what I built, was stronger than ever. As winter bled into spring, the final pieces began to fall into place. Evan tried suing for wrongful termination. His case was laughed out of court before it even made it to a judge. Turns out recorded meetings, emails, and signed confessions have a way of silencing even the loudest cowards. She, meanwhile, faded into the background of the city's social scene. I heard she tried working at a startup for a while. Didn't last. Scandal follows you like a second shadow. Her friends, the ones who used to toast champagne glasses and gush over our perfect marriage, drifted away. Funny how fast loyalty evaporates when the spotlight moves. I didn't gloat. Not really. Pity was all I could muster. A dull, detached pity for people who couldn't see past their own reflections long enough to build something real. One night, about 6 months later, I ran into her. It wasn't planned. Wasn't staged. Life just has a way of circling back to its loose ends when you least expect it. She was standing outside a bar, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. The same green blouse. The same desperate smile. Adam, she breathed when she saw me, like speaking my name was some kind of prayer. I didn't flinch. Didn't feel my chest tighten or my stomach knot. I felt nothing. Hi, I said, polite as a stranger. You look... She started, searching for the right lie. Good, she finished weakly. I nodded. You look... I tilted my head, pretending to think the same. She flinched. A tiny, involuntary wince. Good. She deserved to feel the weight of every choice she made. Can we talk? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I considered it. Let the silence stretch long enough for her to squirm. No, I said finally, smiling gently. There's nothing left to say. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Maybe real, maybe for show. It didn't matter. I turned and walked away, my boots crunching over the thin crust of ice on the sidewalk. I didn't look back. She was a past, a closed chapter, and I was writing a new story. One where the villain never gets a redemption arc. One where the hero doesn't need revenge to heal. Just freedom, just truth, just forward, always forward. The strange thing about freedom is how quiet it is. No fireworks, no roaring applause. Just a simple, stunning silence of a burden finally set down. In the weeks after that final encounter, life didn't change in some dramatic, cinematic way. It just got lighter. I worked, harder than ever, but with a different fire, not to prove anything to anyone, not to chase validation. I worked because I wanted to, because every contract signed, every new project launched, Felt like laying another brick in a fortress no one could ever tear down again. Success, I realized, wasn't about being seen. It was about seeing yourself clearly, finally, and not looking away. I built a new morning routine. Coffee brewed in a small but sunlit kitchen. No more songs in the background, just a steady drip of water through grounds, the hiss of a machine, the pulse of a new day. I started running again, not to escape anything, but because my legs needed to move, to burn, to remind me that life is forward motion. Mile after mile, the city unfolded beneath my sneakers. Glass towers, graffiti walls, parks waking up with dog walkers and early commuters. Each street corner another small declaration. You survived. You are surviving. Some nights were harder than others. Grief is a sneaky bastard. It doesn't storm the gates. It creeps in under the covers at 2 a.m., whispering coulda beans and what ifs against your ribs. But I let it come. I didn't fight it. Pain is the rent we pay for loving at all. And I had loved, fiercely, foolishly, without regret. Even knowing what I know now, I wouldn't erase that part of myself. Loving was never the mistake. Trusting the wrong person with that love was... There's a difference. And learning it changed everything. One Saturday morning, a year almost the day since the divorce was finalized, I stood on the balcony of my new place. Coffee in hand. The city stretched out before me, endless and alive. The phone buzzed on the table behind me. Unknown number. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I turned back to the sunrise and let it ring. I didn't need closure from anyone else. I didn't need apologies wrapped in self-pity. I didn't need answers that would only rot in my hands. I had myself. That was enough. More than enough. The man who had walked into that lawyer's office a year ago, broken, bleeding inside, desperate for justice. He was gone. In his place stood someone whole. Someone who knew that revenge isn't loud. It's not a shout. It's not a knife. It's the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you won simply by surviving better, by living well, by refusing to stay broken. I smiled into the rising sun, feeling its warmth on my face. Tomorrow was coming, and this time I was ready for it. The gallery buzzed with low conversation, glasses clinking, soft music threading through the evening air. It wasn't the kind of place I would have imagined myself a year ago. Back then, my world had been cubicles and company cafeterias, endless meetings and carefully curated LinkedIn profiles. Now I stood in a sunlit, open space, surrounded by canvases bursting with color and life. Somewhere along the way, I'd started investing in local artists. A hobby, maybe, or a way to rebuild something inside me I hadn't even realized was starved for beauty. Funny thing about survival, it doesn't just mean scraping by. Sometimes it means starting over, piece by painstaking piece, until your life fits your soul again. I moved slowly through the exhibit, sipping from a glass of crisp white wine. Faces blurred past me, strangers and acquaintances alike. People who knew nothing of the man I had been, only the man I chose to show them now. I liked it that way. I passed a canvas that stopped me cold. It wasn't flashy. No screaming colors or clever tricks. Just a simple painting of a lone figure standing at the edge of a dock, staring out at an endless expanse of water. No boat, no bridge, just the raw, aching possibility of forward. There was something so starkly honest about it that it made my throat tighten. That was me. Or maybe not just me. Anyone who's ever had to stand at the edge of their own wreckage and decide to step into the unknown anyway. I stood there a long time, lost in it, until a voice pulled me back. Beautiful, isn't it? I turned. She was about my age. Smart eyes. No forced smile. A glass of wine in one hand. A quiet confidence in her posture that immediately made the noise of the gallery fade away. It is, I said simply. We talked about art, about cities we loved, about books we had abandoned halfway through and never felt guilty about. It wasn't electric. It wasn't fireworks. It was easy, real, not the desperate grasping of lonely souls trying to fill a void, not the manic rush of needing someone to validate your existence. Just two people, standing side by side, recognizing something familiar in each other. Later, When the gallery lights dimmed and the night air cooled, we walked along the quiet streets. No promises, no pretenses, just a slow unfolding of possibility. At one point, she paused under a street lamp, the golden light pooling around her. "You seem like someone who's been through hell," she said softly, not unkindly. I smiled, a real one this time. "I have," I admitted, "but I made it out. And I'm not in a hurry to go back," I said, hands in my pockets. She smiled too, and there was something easy and understanding in the way she looked at me. No pressure, no rescue missions, just acceptance. And maybe, just maybe, something more down the road. But if not, that would be okay, too. Because I wasn't standing on that dock anymore, frozen by fear or anger or grief. I was moving forward. And the road ahead, it wasn't something to survive anymore. It was something to live. Fully, fiercely, unapologetically. And for the first time in a very long time, I was exactly where I was supposed to be,